Cast in Baltimore period, and this is where it gets interesting, I think, for Ozzie Newsome and for the Ravens organization, as well as Brandy Williams and Rick Wagner and agents and all of these type of players in 32 places around the league. Usually during the Combine, we go around the league and talk to some old friends. We're going to be doing more of that heading into this weekend and into next week as all of it shakes out over the next 72 hours. Dave Burkett has been the Lions beat writer now for about 7 seasons at the Detroit Free Press. He has a lovely picture of his family up on Twitter, and apparently had a wonderful Christmas tree this past year because it wasn't 15 below in Michigan this year. He's up in Detroit trying to figure out what happens with the Lions, who have been an active part of this in recent years with the Ravens and former coaches, and Haloti Ngata, and feels like a lot of former Ravens wind up in Detroit. And, I had a certain safety on at the Super Bowl, and James Ahedebo as well, who went to Detroit. What's going on, Dave? I'm not leaving Baltimore to go to Detroit anytime soon, but I'm happy to have friends in Detroit.
Yeah, it's good up here. It's you mentioned a mild winter, so everything's been going pretty good, and just kind of jumping into this free agency thing right now, and we'll see what happens.
See, this is where the Midwest and the East Coast meet, is we got the Big Ten tournament. So, like, half of your state's out here trying to get a bid on Sunday night in the Hoops tournament. Meanwhile, the Lions still, we haven't won a Super Bowl here in 4 years, Dave, a whole 4 years. It feels like an eternity around here. And then there's, like, folks like you who chase those ghosts. We'll chase those ghosts next month when the Capitals begin playing. But, it's rough sledding in Detroit, where I don't know that the fans have a real expectation for a real winner. They just want to feel like they're going to play into January and that they have the right quarterback and the right coach. And year after year for 50 or 60 years now, you wind up questioning that this time every year, don't you?
Well, one playoff win in 26 years now, I guess, is it doesn't do a whole lot to help engender good feelings when it comes to your football team. And I think even when they make the playoffs this year, or when they're 9-4 and things are looking good, they're in front of they're leading the division. I think a lot of people sort of look at that with a puzzled look and know that maybe this isn't built to last just based on history. So that's why this period for them. Look, they're not going to go crazy in free agency, but they know that they need to add a few pieces in order to get a better roster, frankly, and maybe win a division and get a home playoff game for the first time since 1993.
See, we haven't had any move in ownership here. I mean, God forbid anything happened to Steve Bisciotti where his wife would take over the team or he would sell the team and someone new would come in and we'd have some second coming of Dan Snyder or Peter Angelos at some point, But in the case of the Lions, there's been a little bit of a transition ideologically there, but there really hasn't been a lot of transition on the players on the field and the star players on the field and the coach, the last couple of years as well.
Still Matthew Stafford obviously leading the way, and they did lose Calvin Johnson, they did lose Ndamukong Suh, but I think they're going about things in a similar way. The biggest difference, of course, is Bob Quinn coming in as general manager, and he took the Patriots sort of approach last year where they made kind of one big splash signing in free agency Marvin Jones, and added a bunch of roster depth, really, I guess. Players, some of them turned out good. Tavon Wilson, they found a starting safety. Some of them didn't. Stephen Ridley, a guy that they spent not much money on, but who they signed early in free agency, they cut in training camp. Jeremy Curley, another guy they traded. So, I think the Lions, look, they have holes all over right now, and that's what these next couple months are going to be about, seeing if they can get back to the playoffs in 2017.
It's incredible because the Ravens were 8-8, and it feels like an epic struggle. The Lions actually get to 9-7, stumble around. I don't know that anybody really believed that they were built for it, especially defensively last year. And it's sort of a no man's land, right? You don't get a good draft pick, when you want to win, and the Lions really want to win, you then spend the cap every year. So it's not like you wake up like the Browns with $100 million in cap space this weekend.
Right.
That's not the way the Lions have rolled this thing all along. And I think letting Ndamukong Suh get away, we're now at this point with Brandon Williams where, obviously not the same kind of player, but Haloti Ngata was that kind of player before he was shipped out. And then the question is how much does the market that has a lot, it's not a fair market, it's a market where they have more money than you at that particular time, and you wind up bleeding in the offseason. And I think the Ravens fans probably aren't going to be happy this week and this weekend, as things settle out, because they're probably going to lose more than they're going to win this week.
Well, look, and I'll tell you what happened with the Lions a couple years ago with Suh, that money got to be crazy money. And once the Lions decided they weren't going to franchise him and they couldn't, I guess practically for a number of reasons. His cap number got too high the year before, and it would have cost them so much money to do that.
Well, you only have so many guys you can do that on. You've already got and once you have a quarterback, because we didn't have a quarterback here for 15 years. I mean, so paying Ray Lewis and paying Suggs and paying Reed, none of that was any problem here. And then Joe Flacco comes along and, so when those guys win, you got to pay them $30 million. Yeah, even when they don't, ask Washington, you got to pay them $30 million, right?
And, when you have a great player or a really, really good player, Sue obviously I think falls into the great category. I think Brandon is a really, really good player. Look, I'm of the belief that you got to do what you can to retain those guys and pay those guys. The Lions, the point I was going to make, being out at the NFL Combine last week, everybody knows the Lions defense has fallen off since Sue left. It was number 2 that last year that he played there, and this past year was 18 in the NFL. Well, the Lions were telling prospects this week that, hey, we're looking for some dogs up front. We haven't had that since Sue left, so we're trying to get that back. So I think when you have that type of player, you have to do what you can to keep them.
He is Dave Burkett. He does all things Lions at the Detroit Free Press. He's at freep.com as well as at Dave Burkett. That's BIRKETT out on Twitter. And tens of thousands of the Honolulu Blue follow him out in Motown. All right, so for the Combine itself, Luke and I took a pass last week. Very rare and unique. I've been traveling the world, a little jet lagged, a little tired. And quite frankly, I don't feel like I missed much. And more than anything, the quarterback conversation and that sort of, these are the blue chip guys, these are the 5 or 7 or 8 or 10 guys that it's going to drop off the table. I'm not hearing anything like that this year, and I don't think we're going to. I think it's going to be a real interesting draft in that some guy that might be projected at 5th might not go to 18th in a lot of these mock drafts.
Yeah, and it's obviously a little early to start getting into the draft because some of that stuff, some of those needs change based on what happens in free agency. But I think there's a couple good players up top. The lineman from Texas A&M, Garrett, and Alabama, and Allen. Stanford's got a really good one, Solomon Thomas, and the quarterbacks are players that are going to really engender a bunch of different feelings. But yeah, you're right. I think this is a draft that's deep enough and balanced enough that teams are going to be able to fill some needs with some pretty good players, especially if you're looking on the defensive side of the ball.
I think initially the first thing you do is look around yourself and say, all right, well, the Ravens aren't in the best of shape, but where are the Steelers and where's Roethlisberger? And he was talking about hanging it up at the end. And, the Bengals obviously had a huge down year, and well, we have the Browns in our division, so we get 3 byes a year. In the case of the Lions, the Lions used to be one of those teams that were the bye week, right? When you got onto this thing, it was 0-16, like for real. When Team Schwartz came in there to sort of turn the thing around. The Packers are perennially there because they have a quarterback. But the Vikings and the Bears are no great shakes either, and the Vikings are shaking things up right now, and they've had all sorts of problems with coordinators, keeping a quarterback healthy, figuring out who their quarterback is. One thing you can say in Detroit is they have a quarterback, we think. And certainly last year was a real year for Matt Stafford, much like it was for Matt Ryan and a bunch of other guys that have sort of have a nude ring finger right now, but at least engender some hope in October and November when the season's going the right way.
I think the Lions have, when you have Stafford, you mentioned it earlier, when you have a quarterback, that's the biggest piece. And I don't think Stafford is he's not this all-pro, future Hall of Famer, best quarterback in the NFL by any means. But when you look around the NFL, you look the way that he played last year, you could be doing a whole lot worse than Matthew Stafford. He had a really good year, and before he hurt that finger, he was a legitimate MVP candidate. I don't know that he was going to win it, but because of what he did late in games for the Lions, he gave them a lot of hope, and they sort of felt they were in any game. Then he hurt the middle finger on his throwing hand, and things sort of fell apart. And that's why now I think they're, they know they need some pieces on defense. They need a couple more pieces on offense, frankly, too. They're just trying to build that thing up around Matthew Stafford because he's going to get paid this offseason. They might have to do an extension for Ziggy Ansah this offseason, too. So they got a couple big ones coming down the road, but they know they need to get some more talent on that roster in general.
How is Haloti not held up, as you've seen it? I don't think the Ravens thought he was shot when they but I think they thought he was not an elite player any longer, and I think they might say the same thing about Terrell Suggs around here now, and, Elvis Dumerville is going to be going out the side door here soon. The names of 2000, Nada came in 2006, man. It's been a little while now, right? We're into 17. Where is he? How much tread left there?
Yeah, I mean, this is the last year of his contract, and just guessing. I mean, he has certainly not said this, but I would guess this would probably be the last season that he plays. I mean, talking to him last year, he said if there was a shot that the Lions got to the Super Bowl, if they won something, he probably would have walked away then. He's still a really good player. He just can't do it, as long, or he's not as effective in the same amount of snaps. But, you see it in flashes where he can still get in the backfield, and he still, really wreaks havoc there. So, he's an important part of this Lions defense. He's certainly not the player that he was at the prime of his career when he was out in Baltimore. But, and I don't know how much longer we're going to see him, but I do think you're going to see him eventually in the Hall of Fame.
Obviously, you miss Megatron, right? When that goes away, we found that out around here with Ray Lewis and with Ed Reed. And, replacing that guy in Philadelphia next month, that just doesn't come along. That's not a real expectation. We found that out around here with John Ogden, believe me.
Yeah, no. I mean, you're right. I mean, Kelvin was a guy that, and I think people, they sort of tried to spin it with a little bit of hopeful eye last year and said, hey, maybe this offense will be better. It'll be more balanced. It'll be this and that. No, when you lose one of the greatest receivers in NFL history, you're not going to be better on offense. You may be better, but it's not going to be because you lost Calvin Johnson. And as the season went on last year, we certainly saw that, it was tough for the Lions to replace him. That offense just didn't operate the same. They had some struggles in the red zone. That's one reason why they're looking for a tight end and maybe a bigger receiver right now, so they can shore that part of the game up. But, look, Kelvin, I know Kelvin is happy in retired life. He did Dancing with the Stars last year, and, he just seems to be relaxed. His body was beat up from everything he put it through. So, I think we're going to see more and more of that going forward. These guys make so much money now that, maybe it's tough to keep playing when your body's telling you otherwise, or maybe you're not going to be making the same amount of money. Darrelle Revis, guys like that we see right now, they've been used to making $15-16 million a year. And if it comes to a situation where, you're going to be playing for $6 million a year, hey, that's a lot of money to you and me. But, to somebody who's made $100 million in his career, maybe it doesn't ring the same to put your body through all the, all that they go through. So I think that's going to be the start of a trend. And, as we look at the Lions and no Kelvin, hey, they need a receiver this offseason. They're not going to spend big on it after getting Marvin Jones last year, but Matthew Stafford needs some more weapons to be effective.
But we're appreciative they pulled Marvin Jones out of our division at least, and anything that weakens the competition, we're all for. Speaking of that, the Ravens were weakened when Caldwell left at the time, and it took some Ravens guys with him. One of them was Terrell Austin. I thought Terrell would be a head coach by now, and a lot of that goes as defenses go and as the team goes and winning games in January and all that. He's sort of destined to be an NFL head coach, right?
I would think so. I kind of agree with you that I thought by now he would have been a head coach, and the fact that he's not is, it's a little bit puzzling. He's a guy that 9 interviews here the last 3 years, so he certainly had some opportunities. And I know the first year there were some questions about, the staff, I guess, the who he was bringing along with him. The next year, I know just talking to Terrell last offseason, maybe some of the interviews didn't seem like they were. He had a realistic shot at some of those jobs, and then this year he got 1 interview. So, maybe the Lions need to be a little bit better on defense. Maybe they need to show a little bit more. I think Terrell does a really good job with the players and with the scheme of things, and I do think that he will be an effective head coach in the NFL one day, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Hey, Dave, it's always great to catch up with you. I'm sorry we missed each other out in Indianapolis. We'll have some shrimp cocktail and some adult beverages next year, and we'll be out at the owners' meetings in a couple of weeks. And who knows, the Raiders could be in Las Vegas by the end of the month, and we'll all have a whole new set of football players 8 weeks from now to talk about, right?
I'd be all right with the Raiders going to Vegas and us getting a trip to Las Vegas annually out of that one.
Oh, what? You don't like the East Bay?
Hey, we'll be there next year, I think.
You got to go to the West Bay is what you need to do.
We'll definitely catch up next year out there in Baltimore.
Dave, no one stays in Oakland. I mean, not even Steph Curry hangs out in Oakland, man. Hey,
yeah, that's right.
Great having you on, man. Be well.
All right, we'll talk to you.
He's out on the playground there, Dave Burkett, doing the parenting thing, as well as doing the football thing at thefreep.com, as well as the Detroit Free Press, one of our pals. You can follow him out on Twitter at Dave Burkett. That's Birkett. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Anywhere the internet travels, we go. And, of course, it's been a big week around here with a lot of things happening from NFL free agency and the start of all of that and where we're going to be on the the back end of the combine and getting ready for the draft. We got the Orioles in spring training. The Wizards keeping us up late at night trying to win games. Same thing with the Capitals out in California all weekend long. And the Big Ten tournament. Luke and I will be down in D.C. all weekend as the Terps try to improve their lot and perhaps cut down the nets on Sunday down at the Verizon Center. Brackets out on Sunday. Big week of hoops next week as well. Our London trip is now on sale at WNST.net. We're going to be doing Nashville. We're going to be doing Green Bay and Minnesota and Oakland, or Vegas, whatever that is, in a couple of weeks when that schedule comes out, middle of April. So you can throw me an email, get on the interest list there, but the London trip is up. Over 100 people signed up already. We'd love to take you with us. All the details are up at WNST.net. Last but never least, head coach Barry Trotz of the Washington Capitals joining us here in the Baltimore area a week from Monday. That's the 20th of March. We'll have more details on that. Show will start at 7 o'clock. Just trying to finalize everything. Cross our T's, dot our I's, make sure we have our oars in the water the right way. But it's happening. March 20th, head coach Barry Trotz will be swabbing for the bone marrow registry. So lots on the mind, lots of teams to talk about, lots of things going on. Golf season opening up. Cars are running around the four turns here, and got things happening. It's sports. It's lacrosse season even around here. For some of you, anyway. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.